Okay, I'm live and I'm starting the stream before there's anyone here because I need to if we're gonna get all the Dracula read and finished in time for D&D today. So, yeah, I did. I went live before I actually sent out the tweet saying, okay, live now, hurry up. I thought I should probably do some Dracula today because I didn't do any yesterday. I wasn't feeling great. I just streamed Stardew Valley for ages. But today I'm feeling better. The light is not great, but that's fine. The whole lighting situation is actually making me look like a Dracula. I have makeup on. I have tons of makeup on. Whatever. Hello, one person. We're going to start in about 10 minutes. We're going to start the actual chapter because I really need to be... Hey, Josh. What's up? Awesome. We're going to start in about 10 minutes because I'm going to wait a little bit for people, as I usually do. And if I were a professional, I would edit these, but I'm not, so I won't. I want to be on time for... oh, wait, no, D&D is at like 4. I thought it was at 1. Okay, there's no need to actually hurry me. I'm an idiot, it's fine. Oh, I'm still trying to wake up. It is. It's at... Wait, is it at 4 or at 1? I don't want it to be at 1. I am prepared for it to be at 1, though, if it is. Do you know, I think I am graying. I think I'm getting, like... I think it's at 4. Pretty sure. But yeah, we won't start the Dracula chapter until about 10 minutes in, because that's how I've been doing it lately, and it seems only fair. I'll be late, don't wait, that's fine. Okay. Just, it's 4, awesome. I've just been on Twitter lording it over Matt Brady that I have the new Cromwell book and he doesn't. Oh, very fancy dinner. Okay then. I think we're all pretty tired, so shouldn't be a problem. I don't know. Okay. God, I look it too. Right, we're going to start with the recap, as we always do. All the gang. What's up, Tara? Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I'm so happy you're here. Oh, man. That's cool. So what's happened so far? All the gang are finally together, and thanks to Mina and her typewriting, I feel like I can... I can't see you through the computer. That would be really creepy. So Mina's typewritten everyone's like various diaries and newspaper cuttings and, you know, bits and pieces. She's arranged them in chronological order, copies for everyone, and everyone in the gang is all caught up on everything that's happened with Dracula and Lucy and Jonathan and everything. All thanks to her. Which, oh God, I'm sniffling again. I think I'm just allergic to being on camera. That's not possible. I've been a show off since I was born. I am allergic to being on camera. What the hell? Okay. Again, if I were a professional, I would edit that out, but I'm not, so I won't. I think in most horror movies, novels, everything like that, collating all the evidence and making sure everyone's got a copy and everyone's aware of what's going on would kill the plot. But what killed, just in case that's the wall doing it, it doesn't work that way in Dracula because Mina is a lady. So all of the boys have all the information, but they're going to leave her behind while they just pop next door to Dracula's house and have a look around. Sorry. Which is so shitty. That's their big plan. All the boys. So if you're counting, that's Jono from the beginning, Jonathan Harker, Van Helsing, that creep, Arthur Homewood, who is now Lord Godalming because his dad died. Just go with it. Quincy Morris, the cowboy from America, who might be in league with Dracula. We don't know. I'm really excited to look for more evidence for this. And Mina herself. And now they're saying, now they're saying that, yeah, we're going to pop over to Dracula's house. We're going to look for these boxes of earth that he needs to rest in. And we're just going to leave Mina behind at Dr. Seward's house, which is a lunatic asylum. Just before they leave. Yeah, I know. It's really interesting to just throw a cowboy into the mix. You've got the weird ascetic doctor, the loony foreigner, the cowboy, the guy who's just a guy, and the guy who's traumatized, but he's also kind of just a guy. Mind the TV. Oh, I would have put lipstick on. Fuck it. TV these days is terrible. Yeah, Mina. Oh my god. Okay. So right before the boys all leave the house and leave Mina, she's not even allowed to be like on the Dracula committee anymore. Her part is done because she's a woman and she's so incredibly important to all of them already that they have to protect her by not letting her know anything or do anything. Which normally I would embrace because I don't like knowing stuff or doing stuff, but I like that to be my choice. That I choose not to know stuff or do stuff. Mina's not really that kind of person. So right before they leave her alone in the lunatic asylum, they get an urgent call from Renfield, the lunatic, who is in league with Dracula. They know this. He calls Dracula his master. He got a visit from Mina, before which he tidied up really quickly by shoving all his pet spiders into his mouth and eating them. That's how I do it too. And then he met her, and now he's meeting with all the boys, and he's like, guys, look, I'm pretty sane right now. Let me out, honestly. I can't tell you why, but I have really, really good reasons. Please let me out. Do not leave me in this house. And they're like, no, we'll leave you here in the lunatic asylum, and we'll leave Mina upstairs, and we'll just pop over next door to Dracula's house, all of us. And sorry, I'm allergic to being on camera. And the last thing Renfield says is, "You will, I trust, Dr. Seward, do me the justice to bear in mind later on that I did what I could to convince you tonight." I think if Mina had been downstairs and witnessed this, maybe things would have gone differently. But we're about 10 minutes in. It's time to start. Chapter 19, Jonathan Harker's journal, who frankly should know better. 1st of October, 5 a.m. I went with the party to the search with an easy mind. for I think I never saw Mina so absolutely strong and well. I am so glad that she consented to hold back and let us men do the work. Oh, she would not have stayed. I mean, leaving Mina out of the Dracula committee is our cell phones aren't working. Alessandra, you're here. Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad. How are you? How is... Or we cannot talk about how Italy is because you want to probably take your mind off it. We just started. The subheading of every journal from now on is Mina really should have been here. Okay, good. Good. I'm glad to hear that. And I partly did a Dracula episode today for you because I didn't do one yesterday. So, I'll start again because I'm only one sentence in. Chapter 19, Jonathan Harker's journal. Who should have known better? Jonathan Harker, who should have known better. Yeah. 1st of October, 5 a.m. I went with the party to the search with an easy mind, for I think I never saw Mina so absolutely strong and well. I don't know why I'm sniffling when I'm starting. Am I allergic to my phone? No. No, God would allow that. Yes. Yep. Mina has given them all of the relevant information. They've had a big council about Dracula. Oh, God, maybe I am. Little fucker, he's outside, I think. And they've just left her alone in the lunatic asylum with Renfield, who has desperately told them, please let me out, don't leave me here. So they left her. They're going. They're going next door. They're going to pop over to Dracula's house, leaving Mina behind. I'm so glad that she consented to hold back and let us men do the work. Somehow it was a dread to me that she was in this fearful business at all. But now that her work is done, and that it is due to her energy and brains and foresight that the whole story is put together in such a way that every point tells, she may well feel that her part is finished, and that she can henceforth leave the rest to us. Everything he's saying is so dumb, and he's her husband. These other guys have just met her. They can... Her work was not done. We were, I think, all a little upset by the scene with Mr. Renfield. When we came away from his room, we were silent till we got back to the study. I was not sniffling all day, I swear to God. Then Mr. Morris said to Dr. Seward, say, Jack, if that man wasn't attempting a bluff, here's about the sanest lunatic I ever saw. I'm not sure, but I believe he had some serious purpose, and if he had, it was pretty rough on him not to get a chance. Lord Godalming and I were silent, but Dr. Van Helsing added, Friend John, you know more of lunatics than I do, and I'm glad of it, for I fear that it had been to me to decide, I would before that last hysterical outburst have given him free. He's faking being foreign. But we live and learn, and in our present task we must take no chance, as my friend Quincy would say. All is best as they are. Dr. Seward seemed to answer them both in a dreamy kind of way. First time Dr. Seward's been described as dreamy. I don't know but that I agree with you. If that man had been an ordinary lunatic, I would have taken my chance of trusting him. But he seems so mixed up with the Count in an indexy kind of way that I'm afraid of doing anything wrong by helping his fads. I can't forget how he prayed with almost equal fervour for a cat, and then tried to tear my throat out with his teeth. Besides, he called the Count Lord and Master, and he may want to get out to help him in some diabolical way. That horrid thing has the wolves and the rats and his own kind to help him, so I suppose he isn't above trying to use a respectable lunatic. He certainly did seem earnest, though. I only hope we've done what is best. These things, in conjunction with the wild work we have in hand, help to unnerve a man. Zeus. I would not like him in a box. I would not like him as a fox. I do not like him anywhere. Bad Dracula. The end. Can't think of anything to rhyme with where. It's not a good sign. The professor stepped over and, laying his hand on his shoulder, said in his grave, kindly way, "Friend John, have no fear. We are trying to do our duty in a very sad and terrible case. We can only do as we deem best. What else have we to hope for, except the pity of the good God?" Lord Godalming had slipped away for a few minutes, but now he returned. He held up a little silver whistle as he remarked, "That old place may be full of rats, and if so, I've got an antidote on call." Having passed the wall, we took our way to the house, taking care to keep in the shadows of the trees on the lawn when the moonlight shone out. When we got to the porch, the professor opened his bag and took out a lot of things, which he laid on the steps, sorting them into 4 little groups, evidently one for each. Then he spoke. "My friends, we are going into terrible danger, and we need arms of many kinds. Our enemy is not merely spiritual. Remember that he has the strength of 20 men, and that though our necks or our windpipes are of the common kind, and therefore breakable or crushable, his are not amenable to mere strength. A stronger man, or a body of men more strong in all than him, can at certain times hold him, but they cannot hurt him as we can be hurt by him. We must therefore guard ourselves from his touch." Yeah, no shit. God damn. Yeah, this is a whistle that makes Dracula's angry. I have a bell that makes Dracula eat a macaroon. Not sure any of this is going to be useful. "Keep this near your heart." As he spoke, he lifted a little silver crucifix and held it out to me, I being nearest to him. "Put these flowers around your neck." Here he handed to me a wreath of withered garlic blossoms. "For other enemies more mundane, this revolver and this knife. And for aid in all, these so small electric lamps, which you could fasten to your breast. And for all, and above all at the last, this, which we must not desecrate needless." This was a portion of sacred wafer, which he put in an envelope and handed to me. Each of the others was similarly equipped. "Yes, you left behind the one thing that could have saved you." Um, yeah, titty lamps. Never heard of titty lamps. There's one each. There's 2 each. It's very funny. Dracula's like, "What are they doing?" And then he's off his rhythm. And then you've got your advantage. Why is that idiot Van Helsing picked up some kind of superstition that Dracula's afraid of nipples? You'll not need rations. No. Well, they've got the sacred host if they need rations. I'm sorry, I don't really know if that's offensive. I think it is. Now, he said, "Friend John, where are the skeleton keys? If so that we can open the door, we need not break house by the window, as before at Miss Lucy's." Oh, the man's a genius. Yeah. If you can open the door, you don't need to break a window, and that's why he's a professor. Dr. Seward tried 1 or 2 skeleton keys, his mechanical dexterity as a surgeon standing him in good stead. Oh my god, this is an RPG. He did a dex roll. Presently, he got one to suit. After a little play back and forward, the bolt yielded, and with a rusty clang, shot back. We pressed on the door, the rusty hinges creaked, and it slowly opened. It was startlingly like the image conveyed to me in Dr. Seward's diary of the opening of Miss Westenra's tomb. I fancied that the same idea seemed to strike the others, for with one accord they shrank back. The professor was the first to move forward and stepped into the open door. No, we discussed this earlier in Dracula, I think, or maybe it was Marjorie Kemp. Jesus is a vampire. He's just he's a much more powerful vampire than Dracula. Yeah. Oh god. Danny, we cannot let Josh play any vampire-based games. Ever. Or we should start one immediately. Either way, it's up to you. It's in your hands. Yeah, he makes you drink his blood. He's just a much more powerful vampire. Also, welcome. Hello, Proud and Selma. Um, he make he's a much more powerful vampire than Dracula, and that's why it works. The professor was the first to move forward and stepped into the open door. "In minus tuus, Domine," he said, crossing himself as he passed over the threshold. Interesting that Van Helsing is a. I just think that everyone in the Netherlands is a Protestant. I don't know why. We closed the door behind us, lest when we should have lit our lamps we could possibly attract attention from the road. Oh yeah, people on the road. Oh no! That's terrible. Where are you going to get your vampires from? No one's thought of that. Someone from the road is like, damn, 5 dudes with like teddy lights on. Weird. They're probably not going to report it. The professor carefully tried the lock, lest we might not be able to open it from within should we be in a hurry making our exit. Then we all lit our lamps and proceeded on our search. You can just buy wine. Yeah. I really blame you guys that I know, right? We're all so good at social distancing. I'm really glad I started this whole stream before, it's right here. We can all just hang out. And it's all of your fault that I'm imagining the tiny lamps being, tiny little titty lamps. The light from the tiny lamps fell in all sorts of odd forms as the rays crossed each other, or the opacity of our bodies threw great shadows. I could not for my life get away from the feeling that there was someone else amongst us. I suppose it was the recollection, so powerfully brought home to me by the grim surroundings, of that terrible experience in Transylvania. I think the feeling was common to us all, for I noticed that the others kept looking over their shoulders at every sound and every new shadow, just as I felt myself doing. Jonathan's having a bit of a flashback here, but he's okay. The whole place was thick with dust. The floor was seemingly inches deep, except where there were recent footsteps, in which, on holding down my lamp, I could see marks of hobnails where the dust was cracked. The walls were fluffy and heavy with dust, and in the corners were masses of spiders' webs, whereon the dust had gathered till they looked like old tattered rags as the weight had torn them partly down. On a table in the hall was a great bunch of keys, with a time-yellowed label on each. They had been used several times, for on the table were several similar rents in the blanket of dust, similar to that exposed when the professor lifted them. They're all spooked. They've all got their titty lamps on. They're all nervously crunching on sacred wafers. A little bit of vampire. Does you good. The professor turned to me and said, "You know this place, Jonathan. You have copied maps of it, and you know it at least more than we do. Which is the way to the chapel?" I had an idea of its direction, though on my former visit I had not been able to get admission to it. So I led the way, and after a few wrong turnings found myself opposite a low arched oaken door ribbed with iron bands. "This is the spot," said the professor, as he turned his lamp on a small map of the house copied from the file of my original correspondence regarding the purchase. Oh yeah, if Mina were with them, it would all be over by now. We're all Team Mina. She would be busting in there with her titty lamps on, being like, "Get the fuck out, Dracula. It's over. 1-on-1, you and me, bitch." What might have been. With a little trouble, we found the key on the bunch and opened the door. We were prepared for some unpleasantness, for as we were opening the door, a faint, malodorous air seemed to exhale through the gaps. But none of us ever expected such an odour as we encountered. None of the others had met the Count at all at close quarters, and when I had seen him, he was either in the fasting stage of his existence in his rooms, or when he was gloated with fresh blood in a ruined building open to the air. But here the place was small and close, and the long disuse had made the air stagnant and foul. There was an earthy smell, as of some dry miasma, which came through the fouler air. But as to the odour itself, how shall I describe it? It was not alone that it was composed of all the ills of mortality and with the pungent, acrid smell of blood, but it seemed as though corruption had become itself corrupt. Fuck! It sickens me to think of it. Every breath exhaled by that monster seemed to have clung to the place and intensified its loathsomeness. It's Axe body spray, or Lynx, as we call it in New Zealand. Under ordinary circumstances, such a stench would have brought our enterprise to an end. But this was no ordinary case, and the high and terrible purpose in which we were involved gave us a strength which rose above merely physical considerations. After the involuntary shrinking consequent on the first nauseous whiff, we one and all set about our work, as though that loathsome place were a garden of roses. Yeah. Edward Cullen, you can smell him like 3 days before he enters a room. It's pretty bad. We made an accurate examination of the place, the professor saying as we began, "The first thing is to see how many of the boxes are left. We must then examine every hole and corner and cranny, and see if we cannot get some clue as to what has become of the rest." A glance was sufficient to show how many remained, for the great earth chests were bulky, and there was no mistaking them. There were only 29 left out of the 50. Once I got a fright for seeing Lord Godalming suddenly turn and look out of the vaulted door into the dark passage beyond. I looked too, and for an instant my heart stood still. Somewhere looking out from the shadow, I seemed to see the high lights of the Count's evil face, the ridge of the nose, the red eyes, the red lips, the awful pallor. It was only for a moment, for, as Lord Godalming said, I thought I saw a face, but it was only the shadows, and resumed his inquiry. I turned my lamp in the direction and stepped into the passage. There was no sign of anyone, and as there were no corners, no doors, no aperture of any kind, but only the solid walls of the passage, there could be no hiding place even for him. I took it that fear had helped imagination, and said nothing. "Jono." "Hi, Jessie. Welcome." Yes, 5 feeble adult men are in crossing the streams of their titty lamps. They're in Dracula's basement, bumbling around, looking at shit, while they left Mina in Renfield alone in the lunatic asylum without a second thought. Nope, they did think about it. They thought about it and they thought, "I'm so glad that Mina is safe." All of them. They just high-fived each other. It'll be fine. Fine. A few minutes later, I saw Morris step suddenly back from a corner which he was examining. This is Jonathan Harker's journal, if anyone missed the point of view. We all followed his movements with our eyes, for undoubtedly some nervousness was growing on us. And we saw a whole mass of phosphorescence which twinkled like stars. We all instinctively drew back. The whole place was becoming alive with rats. No, thank you. For a moment or two we stood appalled, all save Lord Godalming, who was seemingly prepared for such an emergency. Rushing over to the great iron-bound oaken door, which Dr. Seward had described from the outside, and which I had seen myself, he turned the key in the lock, drew the huge bolts, and swung the door open. Then, taking his little silver whistle from his pocket, he blew a low, shrill call. It was answered from behind Dr. Seward's house by the yelping of dogs, and after about a minute, 3 terriers came dashing round the corner of the house. Unconsciously, we had all moved towards the door, and as we moved, I noticed that the dust had been much disturbed. The boxes which had been taken out had been brought this way. But even in the minute that had elapsed, the number of the rats had vastly increased. They seemed to swarm over the place all at once, till the lamplight, shining on their moving dark bodies and the glittering, baleful eyes, made the place look like a bank of earth set with fireflies. One time we opened the shed and a bunch of rats ran out. I didn't like it. It's a little personal experience there. The rats had eaten a bunch of our baby clothes. Mum was not happy. The dogs dashed on, but at the threshold suddenly stopped and snarled, and then simultaneously lifting their noses began to howl in most lugubrious fashion. Lugubrious. The rats were multiplying in thousands, and we moved out. Lord Godalming lifted one of the dogs, and carrying him in, placed him on the floor. The instant his feet touched the ground, he seemed to recover his courage and rushed at his natural enemies. They fled before him so fast that before he had shaken the life out of a score, the other dogs, who had by now been lifted in the same manner, had but small prey ere the whole mass had vanished. Interesting. He's got some kind of thank you. Thank you. It was a very upsetting loss. But, neither me nor my sister have had a baby since then, so we didn't really need them. Oh, those rats. Oh, God, they were horrible. Ugh, didn't like it. Dracula's got some kind of anti-dog repellent. I personally would not have brought dogs because he can control wolves. Why would he not be able to control dogs? With their going, it seemed as if some evil presence had departed, for the dogs frisked about, barked merrily as they made sudden darts at their prostrate foes, and turned them over and over and tossed them in the air with vicious shakes. We all seemed to find our spirits rise. Gotta love seeing a dog slaughter a bunch of rats. So funny. It was Victorian times, so they didn't have, Mad Men and stuff to watch. Whether it was the purifying of the deadly atmosphere by the opening of the chapel door, or the relief which we experienced by finding ourselves in the open, I know not, but most certainly the shadow of dread seemed to slip from us like a robe, and the occasion of our coming lost something of its grim significance, though we did not slacken a whit in our resolution. We closed the outer door and barred and locked it, and bringing the dogs with us, began our search of the house. We found nothing throughout except dust in extraordinary proportions, and all untouched save for my own footsteps when I had made my first visit. Never once did the dogs exhibit any symptom of uneasiness, and even when we returned to the chapel, they frisked about as though they had been rabbit hunting in a summer wood. The morning was quickening in the east when we emerged from the front. Dr. Van Helsing had taken the key of the hall door from the bunch and locked the door in orthodox fashion, putting the key into his pocket when he had done. Orthodox people lock the door right to left, I believe. It's just a really bad joke about crossing yourself, which, no one's going to get. And if you get it, you're not going to find it funny. So, hey, Nut and Jay. Yeah, Dracula, he's afraid of dogs. Junk mail, all the usual things. He's a postman. He comes in the night and you don't even hear him, and then he slips away like a ghost. That's a courier. Yeah, the guys have gone next door and they've kind of scared themselves in the dark with the spooky lamps, and they let the dogs run around. They've had a pretty good time. They've just been playing around, being guys. So far, Van Helsing said, our night has been eminently successful. No harm has come to us such as I feared might be, and yet we have ascertained how many boxes are missing. More than all do I rejoice that this, our first, and perhaps our most difficult and dangerous step, has been accomplished without the bringing thereunto our most sweet Madam Mina, or troubling her waking or sleeping thoughts with sights and sounds and smells of horror which she might never forget. One lesson too we have learned, if it be allowable to argue a particulari, that the brute beasts which are to the Count's command are yet themselves not amenable to his spiritual power. For look, these rats that would come to his call, just as from his castle top he summoned the wolves to your going, and to that poor mother's cry. Though they come to him, they run pell-mell from the so little dogs of my friend Arthur. We have other matters before us, other dangers, other fears, and that monster, he has not used his power over the brute world for the only or the last time tonight. So be it that he has gone elsewhere. Good. He's gone elsewhere, that is good. It has given us opportunity to cry, check, in some ways of this chess game which we play for the stake of human souls. You fucking idiot. And now let us go home. The dawn is close to hand, and we have reason to be content with our first night's work. It may be ordained that we have many nights and days to follow, and full of peril, but we must go on, and from no danger shall we shrink. Guys, been dudes. Yes, they absolutely would. Also, hello XQR. Hey, how's it going? They've just had a boys' day. Exactly. The aristocrats are like, we're gonna solve this with something. I mean, look, Godalming brought some dogs. They just had a boys' night in Dracula's basement, and they were like, oh, he wasn't there, that's good. Is it? Is it? The house was silent when we got back, save for some poor creature who was screaming away in one of the distant wards and a low moaning sound from Renfield's room. The poor wretch was doubtless torturing himself, after the manner of the insane, with needless thoughts of pain. I came tiptoe into our own room and found Mina asleep, breathing so softly that I had to put my ear down to hear it. She looks paler than usual. I hope the meeting tonight has not upset her. I am truly thankful that she is to be left out of our future work and even of our deliberations. It is too great a strain for a woman to bear. I did not think so at first, but I know better now. Therefore, I am glad that it is settled. There may be things which would frighten her to hear, and yet to conceal them from her might be worse than to tell her if once she suspected that there was any concealment. Henceforth, our work is to be a sealed book to her, at least until such time as we can tell her that all is finished, and the earth free from a monster of the netherworld. I dare say it will be difficult to begin to keep silence after such confidence as ours, but I must be resolute, and tomorrow I shall keep dark over tonight's doings, and shall refuse to speak of anything that has happened. I rest on the sofa so as not to disturb her. I know. It's going to be so hard to not talk to Mina after we've been talking to her for so long, and she's the only person who put everything together for us, so we even knew that Count Dracula was living right next door, which we had no idea about. But now I think it's really best that we forge ahead without her. Where was the Count last night? I don't know. Mina's asleep. She looks pale. Anyway. 1st October, later. I suppose it was natural that we should have all overslept ourselves, for the day was a busy one, and the night had no rest at all. Even Mina must have felt its exhaustion, for though I slept till the sun was high, I was awake before her, and had to call 2 or 3 times before she awoke. Indeed, she was so sound asleep that for a few seconds she did not recognize me, but looked at me with a sort of blank terror as one looks who has been waked out of a bad dream. She complained a little of being tired, and I let her rest till later in the day. We now know of 21 boxes having been removed, and if it be that several were taken in any of these removals, we may be able to trace them all. Such will, of course, immensely simplify our labour, and the sooner the matter is attended to, the better. I shall look up Thomas Snelling today. Oh dear. Okay. Oh my goodness. Today brought to you by water because something bad happened to my tooth. Whatever. I don't care. I do care, but I don't want to talk about it. I don't like dentists. I mean, at least Dracula doesn't fuck around with your teeth. Dr. Seward's diary, 1st October. It was towards noon when I was awakened by the professor walking into my room. He was more jolly and cheerful than usual, and it is quite evident that last night's work has helped to take some of the brooding weight off his mind. After going over the adventure of the night, he suddenly said, Your patient interests me much. May it be that with you I visit him this morning? Or if that you are to occupy, I can go alone if it may be. It is a new experience to me to find a lunatic who talk philosophy and reason so sound. I hate him so much. I had some work to do which pressed, so I told him that if he would go alone, I would be glad, as then I should not have to keep him waiting. So I called an attendant and gave him the necessary instructions. Before the professor left the room, I cautioned him against getting any false impression from my patient. But, he answered, I want him to talk of himself and of his delusion as to consuming live things. He said to Madam Mina, as I see in your diary of yesterday, that he had once had such a belief. Why do you smile, friend John? Oh, it's all cheerful the next day when you know the women are out of it. Excuse me, I said, but the answer is here. I laid my hand on the typewritten matter. When our sane and learned lunatic made that very statement of how he used to consume life, his mouth was actually nauseous with the flies and spiders which he had eaten just before Mrs. Harker entered the room. Van Helsing smiled in turn. Good, he said. Your memory is true, friend John. I should have remembered. And yet it is this very obliquity of thought and memory which makes mental disease such a fascinating study. Perhaps I may gain more knowledge out of the folly of this madman than I shall from the teaching of the most wise. Who knows? Obliquity, and then he pretends he can't. You know what? Fuck it. I've said my piece about Dr. Van Helsing and my opinion on whether he is just an English dude who's affecting being foreign so he can get away with shit. My opinion is that he is. I went on with my work, and before long was through that in hand. It seemed that the time had been very short indeed, but there was Van Helsing back in the study. Do I interrupt? He asked politely as he stood at the door. Not at all, I answered. Come in. My work is finished and I am free. I can go with you now if you like. It is needless. I have seen him. Well? Yeah, they're really on a fact-finding mission. Oh, no. No, lunatics don't, they're not compos mentis enough to lie. As we all know. Well, I fear that he does not praise me at much. Our interview was short. When I entered his room, he was sitting on a stool in the centre, with his elbows on his knees, and his face was a picture of sullen discontent. I spoke to him as cheerfully as I could, and with such a measure of respect as I could assume. He made no reply whatever. Don't you know me? I asked. His answer was not reassuring. I know you well enough. You are the old fool Van Helsing. I wish you would take yourself and your idiotic brain theories somewhere else. Damn old thick-headed Dutchman. Your idiotic brain theories. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm imagining him as the Van Helsing in Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. Sorry, Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula was Anthony Hopkins. That was a great movie. The best, worst movie, probably. Take your idiotic brain theories somewhere else. Not a word more would he say, but sat in his implacable sullenness, as indifferent to me as though I had not been in the room at all. Thus departed for this time my chance of much learning from this so clever lunatic. So I shall go, if I may, and cheer myself with a few happy words with that sweet soul, Madam Mina. Friend John, it does rejoice me unspeakable that she is no more to be pained, no more to be worried with our terrible things. Though we shall much miss her help, it is better so. Also, it's not her job to give you happy words. Yeah, he's a brain idiot. I agree with you with all my heart, I answered earnestly, for I did not want him to weaken in this matter. Mrs. Harker is better out of it. Things are quite bad enough for us, all men of the world, and who have been in many tight places in our time. But it is no place for a woman, and if she had remained in touch with the affair, it would in time infallibly have wrecked her. So Van Helsing has gone to confer with Mrs. Harker and Harker. Quincy and Art are all out following up the clues as to the earth boxes. I shall finish my round of work, and we shall meet tonight. Oh, yeah. Hello, Super Bamps. Things are bad enough for us. Yeah, they're pretty bad for you guys. Mostly because Mina isn't collating any of the information anymore, so you just kind of fucked around in a basement and watched a bunch of little dogs tear the shit out of rats. Which, I mean, I get they had a great time and it was probably really good for team building, but oh, thank God, Mina Harker's journal. Team Mina. Josh, it is so childish of you to keep finding sexual subtext in Dracula. It's a very straightforward book about a vampire who likes to bite dudes and ladies and turns into a bunch of rats or whatever. Yeah, like skinny. Oh my God, I'm imagining them all in skinny jeans now. That's not. Ugh, can't like it. Mina Harker's journal. Yes, 1st October. It is strange to me to be kept in the dark as I am today. After Jonathan's full confidence for so many years, to see him manifestly avoid certain matters, and these the most vital of all. This morning I slept late after the fatigues of yesterday, and then Jonathan was late too. He was the earlier. He spoke to me before he went out, never more sweetly or tenderly, but he never mentioned a word of what had happened in the visit to the Count's house. And yet he must have known how terribly anxious I was. Poor dear fellow, I suppose it must have distressed him even more than it did me. They all agreed that it was best that I should not be drawn further into this awful work, and I acquiesced. But to think that he keeps anything from me. And now I am crying like a silly fool when I know it comes from my husband's great love and from the good wishes of those other strong men. That has done me good. Well, someday Jonathan will tell me all, and lest it should ever be that he should think for a moment that I kept anything from him, I still keep my journal as usual. Then if he is feared of my trust, I shall show it to him, with every thought of my heart put down for his dear eyes to read. I feel strangely sad and low-spirited today. I suppose it is the reaction from the terrible excitement. Last night I went to bed when the men had gone, simply because they told me to. I didn't feel sleepy, and I did feel full of devouring anxiety. I kept thinking over everything that has been ever since Jonathan came to see me in London, and it all seems like a horrible tragedy, with fate pressing on relentlessly to some destined end. Everything that one does seems, no matter how right it may be, to bring on the very thing which is most to be deplored. If I hadn't gone to Whitby, perhaps poor dear Lucy would be with us now. She hadn't taken to visiting the churchyard till I came, and if she hadn't come there in the daytime with me, she wouldn't have walked there in her sleep. And if she hadn't gone there at night and asleep, that monster couldn't have destroyed her as he did. And why did I ever go to Whitby? There now, crying again. I wonder what has come over me today. I must hide it from Jonathan, for if he knew that I had been crying twice in one morning, I who never cried on my own account, and whom he has never caused to shed a tear, the poor fellow would fret his heart out. I shall put a bold face on, and if I do feel weepy, he shall never see it. I suppose it is one of the lessons that we poor women have to learn. I can't quite remember how I fell asleep last night. I remember hearing the sudden barking of the dogs, and a lot of queer sounds like praying on a very tumultuous scale from Mr. Renfield's room, which is somewhere under this. And then there was silence over everything. Silence so profound that it startled me, and I got up and looked out of the window. All was dark and silent, the black shadows thrown by the moonlight seeming full of a silent mystery of their own. Not a thing seemed to be stirring, but all to be grim and fixed as death or fate, so the thin streak of white mist that crept with almost imperceptible slowness across the grass towards the house, seemed to have a sentience and a vitality of its own. I think that the digression of my thoughts must have done me good, for when I got back to bed, I found a lethargy creeping over me. I lay a while, but could not quite sleep, so I got out and looked out of the window again. The mist was spreading, and was now close up to the house, so that I could see it lying thick against the wall, as if it was stealing up to the windows. The poor man was more loud than ever, and though I could not distinguish a word he said, I could in some way recognize in his tone some passionate entreaty on his part. Then there was the sound of a struggle, and I knew that the attendants were dealing with him. I was so frightened that I crept into bed and pulled the clothes over my head, putting my fingers in my ears. I was not then a bit sleepy, at least so I thought, but I must have fallen asleep. For except dreams, I do not remember anything until the morning, when Jonathan woke me. I think that it took me an effort and a little time to realize where I was and that it was Jonathan who was bending over me. My dream was very peculiar and was almost typical of the way that waking thoughts become merged in or continued in dreams. I thought that I was asleep and waiting for Jonathan to come back. I was very anxious about him, and I was powerless to act. My feet and my hands and my brain were weighted so that nothing could proceed at the usual pace, and so I slept uneasily and thought. Then it began to dawn upon me that the air was heavy and dank and cold. I put back the clothes from my face and found, to my surprise, that all was dim around. The gaslight which I had left lit for Jonathan, but turned down, came only like a tiny red spark through the fog, which had evidently grown thicker and poured into the room. Then it occurred to me that I had shut the window before I had come to bed. I would have got out to make certain on the point, but some leaden lethargy seemed to chain my limbs and even my will. I lay still and endured, that was all. I closed my eyes, but could still see through my eyelids. It is wonderful what tricks our dreams play us and how conveniently we can imagine. The mist grew thicker and thicker, and I could see now how it came in, for I could see it like smoke, or with the white energy of boiling water, pouring in not through the window, but through the joinings of the door. It got thicker and thicker, till it seemed as if it became concentrated into a sort of pillar of cloud in the room, through the top of which I could see the light of the gas shining like a red eye. Things began to whirl through my brain just as the cloudy column was now whirling in the room, and through it all came the scriptural words, a pillar of cloud by day and of fire by night. Was it indeed some such spiritual guidance that was coming to me in my sleep? But the pillar was composed of both the day and the night guiding, for the fire was in the red eye, which at the thought grew a new fascination for me, till, as I looked, the fire divided and seemed to shine on me through the fog like two red eyes, such as Lucy told me of in her momentary mental wandering when on the cliff the dying sunlight struck the windows of St. Mary's Church. Suddenly the horror burst upon me that it was thus that Jonathan had seen those awful women growing into reality through the whirling mist in the moonlight, and in my dream I must have fainted, for all became black darkness. The last conscious effort which imagination made was to show me a livid white face bending over me out of the mist. I must be careful of such dreams, for they would unseat one's reason if there were too much of them. I would get Dr. Van Helsing or Dr. Seward to prescribe something for me which would make me sleep, only that I fear to alarm them. Such a dream at the present time would become woven into their fears for me. Tonight I shall strive hard to sleep naturally. If I do not, I shall tomorrow night get them to give me a dose of chloral. That cannot hurt me for once, and it will give me a good night's sleep. Last night tired me more than if I had not slept at all. It does sound like carbon monoxide poisoning. Maybe she should have left the window open. 2nd of October, 10 p.m. Still Mina. Last night I slept, but did not dream. I must have slept soundly, for I was not waked by Jonathan coming to bed, but the sleep has not refreshed me, for today I feel terribly weak and spiritless. I spent all yesterday trying to read or lying down dozing. In the afternoon, Mr. Renfield asked if he might see me. Poor man, he was very gentle, and when I came away, he kissed my hand and bade God bless me. Some way it affected me much. I'm crying when I think of him. This is a new weakness of which I must be careful. Jonathan would be miserable if he knew I'd been crying. He and the others were out till dinner time, and they all came in tired. I did what I could to brighten them up, and I suppose that the effort did me good, for I forgot how tired I was. After dinner, they sent me to bed, and they all went off to smoke together, as they said, but I knew that they wanted to tell each other of what had occurred to each during the day. I could see from Jonathan's manner that he had something important to communicate. I was not so sleepy as I should have been, so before they went, I asked Dr. Seward to give me a little opiate of some kind, as I had not slept well the night before. He very kindly made me up a sleeping draught, which he gave to me, telling me it would do me no harm, as it was very mild. I have taken it, and am waiting for sleep, which still keeps aloof. I hope I have not done wrong, for as sleep begins to flirt with me, a new fear comes, that I may have been foolish in thus depriving myself of the power of waking. I might want it. Here comes sleep. Good night. The end of the chapter. The end of the chapter. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, yes. The moral of the story is do not tell your friends shit 'cause it'll worry them. And also, is it a little bit bitchy? That was how I read it, of Mina. Not bitchy, like justifiably bitchy, but a little bit of her to be like, well, I'm still keeping my diary just in case Jonathan ever wants to know what I'm thinking, because here it all is. P.S. I had a weird dream about a bunch of mist. Came into my room with red eyes, and now I'm very tired. Hmm. Yeah, opiates fix everything, except, if you don't, if you think, hey, maybe I shouldn't have drugged myself real bad tonight. Hope nothing bad happens during the night where I have to wake up suddenly, like e.g. a big pillar of mist comes in. Yeah. I mean, how bad is he gonna feel? I don't think she was at the meeting where he explained that Dracula can become mist. Maybe she was, but it was a really boring meeting. Dear future fucker. She just loves him so much, and she's like, "Oh, he's doing what he thinks is best for me." And I guess it is best for me, and I don't really want to bother him about it because I love him so much. But uh, I think, that Mina was not there during the. No, no, Mina was there. Mina was there during the very long, boring meeting where Van Helsing explained the various things that Dracula can do. Ruh-roh. But she, I mean, we've seen, like, from people's diaries and first-hand accounts from Lucy and that kind of thing, that, the actual experience of Dracula, people who should know better just think, it was a dream. They don't really know. Gaslighting is one of Dracula's big powers, I think. Yeah, I want to blame Jonathan. I do. But I think that he's one of the men who trusts Mina the most, and it kind of doesn't sit well with him that these decisions. I think. I do still think Dr. Seward is a piece of shit. Van Helsing is a piece of shit. Quincy Morris, very sexy. I don't know what's up with him. Might be in league with Dracula. He's a cowboy. I'm kind of biased towards cowboys. Arthur Godalming, don't think much about him one way or another. Kind of boring guy. Yes. Yeah, basically. Yeah, Mina's charmed, and she's too charmed to know what happened. You know, to put the pieces together. Actually, once you write it out as a D&D campaign, it kind of all makes sense. Very weird that this book was written long before that. But 1 year after Coca-Cola was invented, which is just a really interesting thing that I can't let go of for whatever reason. Jonathan is not the worst, yeah, but he's not the best. But yeah, thank you everybody for being here. This was a lot of fun, and as it turned out, my makeup and lighting making me look very white was actually very thematically appropriate. So, boys in the chat. Oh, Quincy Morris. I don't care if he's in league with Dracula. He doesn't talk much. He just hangs around being a sexy cowboy. At the moment, he's the best of the dudes. Yeah. Yep. Oh, was I there when we talked about the mist thing? Yeah, you were there. Yeah. No, don't think I was. I think there'll be more Dracula tomorrow. Exactly. That's why Ethan Chandler is the best character on Penny Dreadful, even though he's an idiot. He's a sexy cowboy who can turn into a huge wolfman. If it could turn into like a big wolf, it will be even better, because I'm not... The wolfman thing kind of sucks. I prefer werewolves who can turn into big wolves. But it's the only criticism. Oh, and the one where he completely forgot what the Wolf of God is supposed to do. He's supposed to guard Armanet. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll do that by going to America to get hanged for my crimes. Oh, Ethan. It's not how you do it. But anyway, yeah, thank you everybody for being here. It was really cool. It was a fun session, and I might do some more streaming later on after D&D. Probably not, actually. I'll probably be tired after that, but I've been streaming Stardew Valley on Twitch. Well, I did it last night for ages, and it was really soothing and helped me not get mad at my neighbors too much. But yeah, thanks everybody. I will see some of you later on today for D&D. I'll see some of you tomorrow for more Dracula. And I'll see some of you tomorrow for brunch, which is such a lovely part of the week. Thanks. Leave your windows open so you don't get carbon monoxide poisoning. Leave your windows shut so you don't get a Dracula. Love you too, Tara. Bye, everyone.